Confess sins is the title of this next section, verse 8. And another method which is often used is an attempt to bring man up to God's level. They say that man has reached sinless perfection and that he is living on that very high plateau. Well, John deals with that approach. Listen to him, verse 8. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. 1 John chapter 1 and verse 8. This is even worse than being a liar. When you get to the place where you say that you have no sin in your life, there is no truth in you at all. This doesn't mean you are simply a liar. It means you don't even have the truth. You are deceiving yourself. You don't deceive anyone else. You deceive only yourself. I ran into this problem very early in my training for the ministry. When I went to college as a freshman, my first roommate was a young man who was also studying for the ministry. He was a sweet boy in many ways. The only trouble with him was that he was perfect. When I found the room which had been assigned to me, my roommate was not at home. But when he came in, he introduced himself and informed me that he had not committed a sin in many years. I have forgotten if he said 1, 2, or 3 years. It shocked me to meet a fellow who didn't sin. I had hoped he would be my buddy, but he wasn't a buddy. You see, in every room where I have lived, things go wrong once in a while. And there I was living in a room in which there were only two of us, and one of us couldn't do anything wrong. Sounds like a lot of people I know. So when something went wrong, guess who was the blame? Now I admit that uh, usually it was my fault, but not always. Although he was a nice fellow, he hadn't reached the level of perfection which he claimed. He wasn't perfect. After the first semester, a freshman was permitted to move wherever he wished. So I told him, I'm moving out. He was greatly distressed and said, Oh no, where are you going? I told him, I have met a fellow down the hall who is just as mean as I am, and I'm going to move in with him. So I moved out, and I understand he didn't get a roommate after that. My new roommate and I got along wonderfully well. In fact, I still visit him down in the state of Florida. Again, this is McGee and not me. We are old men now, and we still have wonderful times together. Neither of us is perfect, although we have mellowed, I bet, down through the years. My friend, if you feel that you have reached the state of perfection, I really feel sorry for your spouse because it is hard to live with someone who thinks he is perfect. John says, if you say that you have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. We cannot bring ourselves up to God's level. It is impossible to reach perfection in this life. Let me give you another instance of this because I think it is important. When I first came to Pasadena, again, that's McGee and not me, I knew a man who served for a while as chaplain at the jail. He was a wonderful and enthusiastic Christian. I certainly had no criticism of him, but one day he met me on the street and said, Brother Vernon, I got sanctified last night. I said, You did? What really happened to you? He told me that he had reached the place where he could no longer sin. Well, I didn't see him for a while after that, but one of the officers of my church I served at the time lived next door to him. The son of the man who had reached perfection came to visit and parked his trailer in the backyard of that, uh, with part of it on the property of the man who was an officer in my church. He said nothing for a while, but the time came when he had to build a shed on that spot. The neighbor knew he was intending to do this, but he made no mention of it. Finally, when it looked as if the sun was going to stay and he felt that he would wait no longer to build, he went to his neighbor and asked him to move the trailer. Well, the fellow lost his temper and really told him what kind of neighbor he thought he was. That's the ones that I say, God will judge between me and thee, that's for sure. The man who was the officer in my church casually mentioned the incident to me one day. So I couldn't wait to meet that fellow, and finally I looked him up and said to him, didn't you tell me that you got sanctified? Yes. And when you got sanctified, you reached the plane of sinless perfection? Yes, I think I have reached it. Well, your neighbor is a member of my church, and he tells me that you really lost your temper the other day and told him off in a very unkindly, unchristian like manner. He began to hem haw. I guess I did lose my temper, but that is not sin. Oh, if it's not sin, what is? I just made a mistake. I recognize that I should have done it, so that's not sin. Actually, if you nail them down, it's you've got to break a major Ten Commandment. You got to murder somebody or commit adultery. They don't probably even consider lying is one of the Ten Commandments, which is gossip. They'll go around gossip about you. But anyway, well, I want to shake hands with me now because uh, I've reached that plane too. I didn't sin. I just make mistakes, and I make a lot of them. But brother, the Word of God will make it very clear to you that losing your temper and bawling out your neighbor as you did is sin. My friend, when do you think you deceive when you say that you have no sin? Whom do you think that you deceive when you say you have no sin? You deceive yourself, and you are the only person whom you do deceive. You don't deceive God, you don't deceive your neighbors, you don't deceive your friends, but you sure do deceive yourself. And John says that the truth is not in a man like that because he can't see what that he is a sinner and that he has not reached the place of perfection. Yet a great many folk are trying that route in their effort to bridge the gap between themselves and a holy God. Since you cannot bring God down to your level and you cannot bring yourself up to his level, what are you going to do? God gives us the alternative here. It's interesting. That's what I was talking about uh, in the pocket testaments